matter what your stance on guns or gun control, it is difficult to find anyone who thinks it is acceptable for any child to be hurt with a firearm. York Furstenwald is a firearms safety expert and instructor. He has written a book for adults who are on both sides of the gun debate. It is called Kids, Guns, and the Truth. Furstenwald is a designated firearms instructor with the Department of Justice, and it is my pleasure to welcome York Furstenwald to Studio 4 to tell us more.
Thank you.
What prompted this particular book, Kids, Guns, and the Truth?
Well, I think really when I started to do some research, I found it was just so biased. It was either so pro or so anti. And I couldn't really find anything that was really pro-education. I guess they're so opinionated on either side of the spectrum. And I wanted to write something for adults to talk to children about firearm safety, but also kind of come down the middle, respect both sides, and not be, pro or anti.
Sure, but as you know so well, many adults don't know anything about firearm safety, never shot a gun, never had a gun. I happen to come from a state where everybody shot a gun, but
That's right.
I know many Canadians who have never touched a gun.
And that's one of the things I talk about just how, if you don't have experience, lots of people come to me, they ask me questions. They say, well, I'll ask a question. For example, is it really that difficult to pull a trigger of a handgun? And I say, well, next time you go to the fridge, ask your son or daughter, your little son or daughter, to hold up one of those 4-liter containers of milk. Well, those weigh 10 pounds. Well, if you can do it with one finger, average handgun pull is between 3.5 and 5 pounds. So not much pressure.
I remember when I was a little girl, I shouldn't tell you this, but my grandfather was a sheriff in Montana, and he let me hold his gun. And it was heavy. Your little hand would wobble, and I never got to shoot it, but you know what I mean. So your first experience with a gun, how did you get into this?
Really, when I was younger, I kind of followed the path a lot of young guys do. It's that pellet gun type of thing, playing with pellet guns, and then from there just progressed to having an interest in it. And later on, married into a family of all policemen, so I thought about a career in law enforcement, but then that led me to getting training, which ended up in the States. Most of 99% of the training was in the States. And then I found out I wasn't too bad at it, so I started teaching.
What do you mean you weren't too bad at it?
Well,
you could shoot
I
middle,
took to it.
The targets, you could hit the target,
not
or
too
what?
bad, yes.
Well, you write in the book, and I grew up with, you never let a muzzle point at anything
Absolutely.
You don't want to destroy or kill. Never. Not a squirrel, not a human, not a tree.
And that's just basic safety. We talk about in class, we talk about assume every gun that you come across is loaded. Just assume that in your head. Every time you touch a firearm, it's loaded. And then control that muzzle direction. Because I think what happens is kids automatically, and my fear is, say for example, they're playing in the playground or they're playing in the woods, they find a firearm from any type of thing. First thing they're going to do is they're going to turn around, they're going to point it in a direction and put their finger on the trigger.
Right. You said to me, or you wrote in here, that there's stricter laws in Canada against pot.
Oh,
than
absolutely.
there are against guns. That surprised me.
Well,
stricter laws against marijuana than against guns.
But
not handguns.
Yeah, not handguns.
No.
But I think we're going through, now we're seeing, with the firearm registry on its way out, and just the perception of firearms. Like you just said before, a lot of adults have never had one. They grew up either rural, or they didn't grow up in the city, and they didn't have an opportunity to be around firearms. So what I'm trying to say is more, if we educate ourselves, and the big sort of message is we've got to try and take away that curiosity children have, that natural curiosity. And I believe just because we give them some education regarding firearm safety, doesn't mean they're all going to run out and start firing guns. But it's the same way we have bicycle education in school. Police liaisons come and talk about bicycle safety, talk about drug awareness. They talk about we have kids in swimming lessons. I mean, probably one of the first things as a mother you do is you put your child in swimming lessons.
Right.
Why? Because for that time when you're not there, not for when you're standing beside the pool, but it's for when you're not there, and hopefully your child has the ability to, with those lessons, they're jumping off the neighbor's pool or in the dock down at the the local lake, that they can be safe for a lifelong. I think that's the message as well.
Yes, very much so. That's the message. However, there is a contingent of parents, I think misguided personally, who say if you teach kids about guns, they'll take up guns. If you teach kids about sex, they'll start having sex. So there are parents who say we shouldn't have sex education in schools for whatever reason.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure there will be parents, if it ever comes to this, that don't want their child to learn about guns in school, or gun safety, I shouldn't say.
Well, maybe, one of the questions I ask some of those parents is, well, do you ban all your matches in your house? Because I'm sure you talk to your kids about
fire safety.
Playing out matches. Why? Because you don't want your house burnt down. So do you take all the matches out of your house?
But as you know, there is a Canadian perception it doesn't happen here.
Absolutely, and that's the big thing I talk about. We have this huge perception that it only happens in the United States, and really, I mean, if you just take a look around what's happening, I mean, we've had some horrific things go on, not only in the city, but across Canada. Shootings, we've had young kids just a little while ago, just before the break, in Winnipeg. We had a young girl that was shot a week by her younger brother. I mean, a 4-year-old girl was shot by her 5-year-old brother.
Right.
And a week before that, a young boy on the reserve, he was shot and killed by his 14-year-old brother. Just accidental. Well, I think, if we had an ability to talk to those kids and say, listen, here's the base of what we should do with firearms if we come across them. Don't touch them. Go away. Go talk to a competent adult. Not just any adult, a competent adult. Because we all know,
Right.
Not every adult's competent enough to even
No,
have
true.
a firearm. So.
But the fact that a parent would leave ammunition in a gun is shocking
Well,
to us,
and I
really.
think what happened...
Even if it's in the gun cabinet.
Absolutely, but they have to learn from somewhere. So I think kids, one of the messages I give to parents is, regardless of your stance on guns, you can't control your environment outside of your home. And as a parent, you can say, well, I'm going to only allow this much television, I'm going to allow this much violent movies, this much computer time. Computer experts or parenting experts say, put your computer somewhere where you can see them. I say the problem is you can't control outside their environment. As much as you think you can't control little Billy or Sally when they're at their friend's
Right.
house.
No, true.
And they're the ones that are maybe watching that movie or playing around. And guns are the great equalizer, I think, when you have a young man or woman who, a young kid, and all of a sudden they can say, to go to the playground and say, well, you know what? I know where my dad's handgun. He hides it in a shoebox.
Right.
Where are you going to go to? So now all the kids, and I see it also as adults. I teach in an adult class, and I'll come prepared to the class, and I'll open up a gun case, and all the firearms are, trigger locks and everything. But it's almost, like that Indiana Jones when the tablet opens.
Right.
All the adults come to, oh, I've never touched one, I've never. And the first thing they always say, oh, I didn't realize it was this heavy, or
Right.
this
No,
mechanism.
I know. I've never shot a 357
Yeah,
Magnum.
and they're all looking at it.
Maybe I should try, or what's
and
a
they've
Glock?
seen it, and unfortunately, most adults get their education from TV and movies, and that's not
Yes.
very realistic.
No, it's so not.
No, not
It's
at all.
well, not that I have been involved in a shooting, but I don't see much blood splatter on the television. You get shot on the television, you just fall down.
Yes, yeah, and
Pretty
then
much. Don't look that hurt.
yeah, and then kids come, and what children don't realize is people come back from TV and movies. They're there next week doing another, part in the series. Where the reality is, we know,
Sure.
you don't come back from that.
Or the message, it is a way to solve problems,
Well, absolutely.
getting a gun.
That's a huge thing. I'm glad you said that, because you look at something, the horrific thing that's going on in Ohio now. I mean, we had a school shooting, a high school shooting.
Yes.
Young boy.
2 dead.
2 dead. 3 critically wounded. And now, really, what is that? You're going to have both sides saying, well, if there was no guns, if you banned guns, that wouldn't have happened. Well, no, this is a young man with mental illness that basically took a firearm to solve a problem. And that's one of my messages, is that we have to be safe and educate kids, but they're not a problem solver. Guns are not a problem solver.
Right, and a school shooter, bullied, loner,
Yes,
don't know.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
certainly they haven't figured it out yet, the motive, all of that. But imagine being a parent and knowing that the school's been locked down because there's a shooter in the cafeteria.
And panic, an absolute panic. And in my research, one of the organizations that I found that was most helpful, and it seems a little bit odd, is the United States Secret Service. They are at the forefront of school shootings. They study university and high school shootings, and they've got threat assessments. And one of the things they talk about is you can't really profile a shooter like that. You can't,
Right.
Because if you were to say it's the kid that goes to the
Sure.
principal's office, it's this bad kid. Well,
Not
I was always in the
necessarily.
principal's office.
I was in
right?
the principal's office too.
That kind of thing, right?
And I did not take a gun
and
to
you turned
school.
out pretty great.
Well, you see, you too.
I'm sort of.
But principal's office was
Yeah.
interesting. You just when you're yapping.
So you can't profile those kids. And
No,
say,
when you're
"That's it."
yapping and
Yeah.
outspoken, you do spend time in the principal's
Yeah,
office. It is true. We know that. We'll come back with York Furstenwald. His book is called Kids, Guns, and the Truth.